Good evening, I'm Jon Carter and welcome to Poland Daily. The teachers' strike began on Monday morning and is expected to last for an indefinite period. According to the Polish Teachers' Union, nearly 80% of schools are taking part in the protest. According to data from the Ministry of Education, however, less than half of all schools taking part in the strike. The strike has caused huge problems for parents who must now organise care for their children.
Za nami pierwszy dzień strajku nauczycieli.
Today was the first day of the teachers' strike. There have been announcements stating the school is taking part in the strike on the doors of many schools and kindergartens throughout Poland. Many parents must now organize care for their children. The open question is, how many schools are taking part in the protest? The data from the Ministry of Education differs from the data of the Polish Teachers' Union. The government claims that less than 50% of schools are taking part in the strike. On the other hand, during an interview with Telewizja Republika, the deputy chairman of the Polish Teachers' Union said he hoped all schools would take part in the protest. From the information we have, we can't say exactly how many schools are taking part in the strike. The information is uncertain. We have many departments, 3,000 to be exact, but from the information we have, we can say that between 79 and 100% of the schools are taking part in the protest. If someone wants to politicize our strike, it means this person does not understand the teachers' determination. This is not a strike of the Polish Teachers' Union, it is the strike of all the teachers in Poland. The number of teachers taking part in the strike is higher than the number of members of the Polish Teachers' Union.
Liczba szkół i placówek, które przystąpiły w dniu dzisiejszym do strajku.
The Minister of Education was informed about the number of schools taking part in the strike by the school superintendent, who himself was informed by directors of schools. So, from the information we have, we can say that 48.5% of schools are taking part in the protest, but that data will constantly be changing.
Szkół i placówek.
Jeżeli jest takie założenie, jeżeli było takie założenie pana Broniarza.
I heard about a radio interview with the chairman of the Polish Teachers Union, where he said that the strike would start, and he announced this 2 hours before the negotiations. I'm sure many people started to think about his real intentions. Does he really want to reach an agreement? Today, the chairman of the Polish Teachers Union, Stanisław Broniarz, refused to accept another proposition from the government. The proposition offered a rise in the teachers' salaries. Let's not forget that he's responsible for the students.
Przypomnijmy, że strajk nauczycieli jest
The teachers' strike will last for an indefinite period of time. Middle school exams are due to start the day after tomorrow, while 8th grade students' exams are supposed to begin this week.
The Italian Minister of Interior, Matteo Salvini, has announced that he is creating a new political group for the European Parliament elections. Anti-mass immigration parties, such as the Danish People's Party and True Finns and Alternative for Germany, will join the new group. Fidesz, the party led by Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, may join the group at a later stage, but will remain within the European People's Party for now.
Nationalist anti-immigration parties plan to join forces following next month's EU parliamentary election in the hope of creating a new bloc to shake up the European Union, officials from 4 groups said today. The initiative was announced at an event organized by Italian Deputy Prime Minister Matteo Salvini.
We are ready to build a future, and I thank the friends with whom we begin this journey that will save Europe. The bureaucrats, the do-gooders and the bankers who have been governing Europe for too long are burying the European dream.
Jörg Meuthen, the chairman of the Alternative for Germany party, revealed that the EU parliamentary bloc has already been named and will initially involve at least 10 parties drawn from the 3 groups that currently house various nationalist forces.
We want to reform the European Union and the European Parliament without destroying them. We want to bring radical change.
On Friday, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán called for the beginning of a new Europe as a part of his party's program for the upcoming European parliamentary elections. Orbán said he wanted new leaders who would stop migration into the bloc and condemned the head of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, for continuing mass migration into Europe.
Take, for example, a certain Jean-Claude Juncker. We thought he was right-wing, and instead we got a bona fide European socialist who has a grave responsibility for Brexit, the migration invasion, and the growing conflict between Eastern and Western Europe.
It remains uncertain whether his party Fidesz will leave the European People's Party, but Orban has spoken warmly of Salvini in recent months.
If Europe wanted, it could stop the mass migration into its territory, but the truth is that they do not even try. On the contrary, the present leadership of the Union supports migration, encourages migration, and those who want to stop it, like us or the Italian Minister of Internal Affairs, Matteo Salvini, simply get damned.
Whether or not Orban's party joins forces with Salvini, it seems certain that populist anti-mass immigration parties are on the rise before the May European Parliament elections.
The Greek Minister of Migration, Dimitris Vitras, has stated that he believes human trafficking rackets are behind the riots on the Greek-Macedonian border. Hundreds of migrants gathered near the migrant reception centre in Diavata after an internet campaign encouraged them to form a migrant caravan and use force to cross the border into Macedonia.
Yesterday, the majority of the people gathered in an illegal makeshift migrant camp built in the vicinity of the migrant reception centre in Diavata left for organised migrant camps across Greece. The migrants had been battling with police for days, attempting to cross the border into Macedonia and continue into northern Europe. According to eyewitnesses, some of them left voluntarily, while others had to be loaded onto buses with force.
Most of our brothers, most of our relatives, most of the asylums that are collected together here, they are going, half of them inside the camp, half of them go by force, sit it in the bus and take all the asylums to the Athens by force. Not by their rights. It's too dangerous for us to live in Greek.
Previously, some of the migrants had vowed to camp out by the border for months if necessary.
We are decide about this. We are come back in. We don't come back into Greece. We decide go to the border. If open, okay. If no open, sit the border. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, no problem. Better in the border, in the tent. That is better in the camp.
Meanwhile, Turkish authorities have caught around 1,000 migrants trying to cross the border into Greece around the Turkish city of Edirne. The renewed unrest at Europe's southern borders shows that the migration crisis, which started in 2015, is far from over.
Thank you very much for joining us here this evening at Poland Daily. I'm Jon Carter. Stay tuned after the break for Poland Daily Weather. It's followed by the business, culture, history, and then it's the travel.
Good evening, I'm Paulina Otterstein and welcome to Poland Daily Weather. First, let's see what will happen tonight. So as we can see, the temperatures will vary quite a bit. 10 degrees will be seen in the area of Rzeszów and only -1 in the area of Olsztyn. Warsaw will see 4 degrees, 3 degrees in Łódź with clear skies, and also clear skies over in Szczecin with 2 degrees Celsius. And now let's check what will happen tomorrow. So tomorrow, some parts of Poland will be still very warm, like Rzeszów, Krakow, 17 degrees over there, 16 degrees in Katowice, but only 6 degrees in Gdańsk and Olsztyn, and 7 degrees in Koszalin. No showers will appear tomorrow, and it will be quite sunny all over the country. This is all for tonight. Thank you and see you soon.
And our guest tonight is Paulina Otterstein, President of Canadian Chamber of Commerce in Poland. Sir, thank you for coming to the Poland Daily Business Edition.
Thank you.
Well, actually, what is the relation between Poland and Canada right now in the economic dimension?
Well, in general, the relations between Canada and Poland are excellent in every way. And economically, there's no difference. It's really, really good.
Can we name the Canadian companies that are operating in Poland and bringing benefits, and the Polish companies that are doing business in Canada?
Well, certainly there are some big names. I mean, I'll mention a few. We have here Pratt & Whitney Canada, we have MB Aerospace, we have Bombardier, big companies, McCain, and others in the high-tech and IT and transportation sectors, as well as food processing and other things. And then we have, on the other hand, some Polish companies in mining and energy, such as KGHM and Orlen Upstream, who are acquiring assets in Canada and expanding their resource base, which is an important thing on the upstream side or on the resource side for Polish companies that need to get some of the benefits of Canada's resource base.
Right. Canada is a unique place in the world, huge natural resources,
Exactly.
friendly atmosphere and nice place. Poland, as a part of European Union, has a very special relationship with Canada, and the law is the same from Canadian point of view here as in Germany or in France. Is Poland for Canadian business a little bit more interesting than other countries?
Well, Poland has something that other countries don't have in Europe right now, and that is a lot of talented young people, an incredible resource in that sense. Something that Poland is outstanding for at this time in the world are its people and their abilities, and that's something that I think few other countries in Europe can offer to that extent right now. So Poland certainly has big advantages for Canadian and for a lot of other international companies because of the skills and the abilities and the motivation of its people.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's say in the international trade, the services and goods are the things that we measure to say what is the atmosphere, what is the level of relationships. What Polish companies can offer to the Canadian economy?
I think that Polish companies can offer quite a lot, especially since Canada and the European Union signed the comprehensive agreement on comprehensive economic and trade agreement last year. It's in provisional force, but it allows Polish companies not only to export their products to Canada, which can be very attractive, those products, because Canada doesn't have perhaps all of the things that Poland has in terms of innovative new products that small and medium-sized Polish companies are producing. On the other hand, Polish companies can also participate in procurement opportunities with Canadian government bodies, from the municipal to the provincial to the federal level. And they can participate on an equal footing with Canadian companies in many sectors. So that's something very interesting. That's a service perhaps or a product offering, but public tenders are open for Polish and for all European companies in Canada.
Do you know any examples of Polish companies taking active part in tenders in Canada?
Not recently, but I do know some historical cases of Polish companies building bridges, for example, in Canada. But I could imagine that Polish companies could really engage in a lot of service opportunities.
So this famous Polish hydraulic or Polish plumber can go from France to Canada.
Yeah, he certainly can. But there's an ocean in between, and so the distance is longer for smaller operators. It's more an opportunity for bigger companies, I think. But having said that, I think there are also the opportunities for exporters and other SMEs to take advantage of the CETA opportunity.
Right. Well, very soon there will be hot summer and vacations, at least in Poland and in Canada, by the way, at the same time. Is there growing touristic movement between Poland and Canada? Like Poles are going for vacation to Canada?
That's difficult to gauge right now. However, the interest in Canada has always been strong from the Polish side. As you probably know, we have about 1 million Polish Canadians.
Right,
so
but this is like historical reasons.
The historical ties are strong, and a lot of Poles actually travel to Canada to visit their relatives. And I think that tourism from Poland to Canada is in many ways related to that. But I have heard of a lot of people actually going now just to see Canada's natural sights and wonders, which are really, really amazing.
Or sail on the big lakes instead of crowded Missouri. You can take the lakes in Canada.
The beauty of the Canadian wilderness is that you can enjoy it by yourself or in a small group of people with nature, and that's something that's perhaps unusual in Europe.
But you have to take a gun to the forest.
I actually never have, but it's easy to come into contact with wild animals such as bears, and you have to be careful.
Yeah, because they may not understand your jokes.
They may not understand Polish, for example, or other strange activities.
Bernard Otterstein, Polish Canadian Chamber of Commerce in Poland. Thank you very much, sir, for coming to our tiny show, and hopefully you will come next time to talk about more specific businesses that are definitely developing between our countries.
Yes, there's a lot to talk about. My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you've seen Poland Daily Business Edition. And join us next time.
Good evening, welcome again to Poland Daily Weather. I'm Paulina Otterstein. Let's see what will happen tomorrow in Poland. So as we can see, still nice and warm around Rzeszów and Krakow with 17 degrees, 16 degrees in Katowice, 11 in central Poland, and the minimum of 6 around Olsztyn, also in Gdańsk, and 7 degrees will be seen in Koszalin, 10 degrees in Białystok, 15 in the southern east parts of the country. And now let's check what will happen tomorrow in Europe. So again, quite cool in the north around Stockholm, 2 degrees will be noted there, 4 degrees in Helsinki with some possible snow, and 6 degrees in Oslo. 12 degrees will be seen in London as well as in Paris, and 10 degrees in Dublin with sun and clouds. The warmest place will be 20 degrees in Bratislava as well as in Prague in the Czech Republic. This is all for tonight. Thank you and see you soon.
Mike Trebacz, the founder of Cruising Krakow, was born in Krakow. He left Poland at an early age with the rest of the communist-era exodus and moved to Vancouver, Canada. Mike completed a degree in philosophy at the University of British Columbia, sold his car, and moved to the opposite end of the cultural spectrum, Spain. He worked in Barcelona, but after 3 years of beaches, sunshine, and sangria, returned to the city of his birth. Mike has been running Cruising Krakow since 2006. The firm offers bike and Segway tours for which roads are not necessary. You can blaze the trails, charge the open fields, and trek through the dirt. These off-road beasts have a wide base platform for maximum comfort, deep tread tires to traverse all sorts of terrain, and will go up to 20 kilometers per hour for about 20 kilometers. Jon Carter and Mike Trebacz will be taking you for a tour around Krakow.
Okay then, Michał, so where are we now?
I brought you this mystical little courtyard in order to show you these magnificent cement stairs.
Okay.
Well, there's a famous scene in Schindler's List, the filmed right here. First of all, I should tell you that most of the movie was filmed here portraying the ghetto, which isn't actually accurate. The ghetto is located across the river from us in Podgórze.
Okay.
So most of the movie was filmed here, and they show the ghetto being evacuated. They show the remaining Jews being moved into the concentration camps, and a mother, along with her daughter, tries to hide in one of these apartments. But when they open up the floorboards in the apartment, there's already a family hiding there. They tell her there's no room for the two of them. The mother can just leave her daughter. She does so. She comes running down these steps here, but her daughter shortly joins her afterwards, and then two of them bump into a boy who starts whistling on his whistle, alarming the Nazis. There's still some Jews hiding. Before you know it, turns out the little boy recognizes the girl as they used to be neighbors. So when he realizes who it is, he proceeds to hide both the mother and her daughter underneath these very steps before telling the Nazis, actually, there aren't any Jews here.
Mrs. Dresner?
Yes. Oh, you are a friend of my son's. Don't worry, I'll go quietly. I'll be no trouble.
No, get under the stairs. They'll be down searching soon. You'll be safe there. Please, hide.
Not by the sun.
Please, hide under the stairs.
I've
Search the building. There's no one here.
Hello, Adam.
Hello, Danka. Come with me. I will put you in the good line.
Do you know the saying now of life is still life? You are not a boy anymore. I'm saying a blessing for you.
Why do you think Spielberg chose this area if it wasn't actually this area where, you know, where the ghetto actually was?
It looks a lot more interesting. I mean, the ghetto today is very communist era style, and of course, we're talking about the war, which is pre-communist times.
Okay, so has it got a little bit more atmosphere in
It does
this?
indeed.
And it does, yeah.
And it's still at the heart of the Jewish soul in Krakow even today.
Right. Okay then. And does anybody still live here today? Or
They do.
is-
Yep. So these are private homes today. There used to be a restaurant down here, but as you can see, it's closed as of last year.
Okay.
And I believe they're going to be opening something new. Besides that, there's a great beer garden just located at the entrance to this courtyard, which now it's closed. It's early spring, but in the summer, it is the best place to be. As 30 years ago, this is not the place you want to go at night. It's kind of a shady district, but now it's turned into the trendy part of town with a lot of bars, cafes, restaurants, and boutique shops opening up.
Okay, yeah. I can sort of imagine it having a little bit of edge in here, sort of a lot of dark shadows and hiding places and sort of things like that. All right then, yeah. So, and what's the actual name of this specific little area?
We know it as the Mleczarnia, named after the bar that's located here. That's how the locals call it.
Okay, okay.
Or the square of Schindler's List stairs.
Yeah, there you go. It's always like Hollywood's always got this something a little bit which leaves its mark, right?
Exactly.
Okay. All right then. Let's make a move, shall we?
All right.
Kazimierz was once an independent town governed separately from Krakow until the late Middle Ages. Later, it became known as the Jewish quarter of the city and was finally transformed into a center for Krakow's beatnik bars and cafe culture. All that history makes for an awesome array of activities and sites. The Kazimierz Dolny commune is proud of its rich cultural heritage. There are over 150 architectural buildings and structures, as well as historical monument complexes and 396 movable relics located mainly at various sacral facilities, which are legally protected and entered into a registry of historical monuments. Apart from the aforementioned objects, 180 other buildings, complexes, and memorials are considered cultural assets.
All right there. So, where are we now then, Michał?
Right now, we're located on the far side of the old Jewish cemetery. So I say there's old Jewish cemetery, there must be a new Jewish cemetery. The big difference between the two is in the Middle Ages, Jews had a hard time getting any real estate, so any land that they could get to devote towards the cemetery is usually quite restricted. As a result, there used to be a saying in Poland that Jews are buried sitting, so take up less space so that they're closer to God. In reality, they're not sitting, they're actually stacked, one on top of the other. So each generation, new layer of soil is put down, and the next generation would be buried above the previous. And that's the way it is here. And as a result, this is the gate of the cemetery, and as you can see, it's quite small.
Yeah.
And that's a result of the level of the cemetery rising over the generations.
Wow, so how old is this cemetery then?
The oldest tombstones date back to the beginning of the 16th century.
Jeez, all right, so it's particularly old. So how many levels do we think
We're
there
looking
might
about
be?
about nine generations.
Whoa, okay.
And one of the reasons why these tombstones dating so far back are so well preserved is that during the Nazi occupation, the Nazis used this cemetery as a garbage dump.
Okay.
So that actually resulted in the tombstones being very well preserved, being underneath the garbage.
Oh, I see. Okay, okay. And is it still kind of, should we say, active today? Are people still being buried here? Or?
No, there's the new Jewish cemetery, and people are still being buried there. That one dates back to the beginning of the 19th century. But it was completely destroyed during the Second World War and then rebuilt in the 1960s.
Okay, and so can people go inside to visit, or?
It's part of the Remu Synagogue, named after a famous rabbi who's buried here. And your ticket to visit the synagogue includes your visit to the cemetery, so it's paid. The other one is free.
Okay then. And are there any particularly well-known people who were buried here, or?
So the synagogue is named after Rabbi Moses Isserlis, and the reason that he's famous is that he translated the Spanish Codex of Jewish laws and applied it to Central Europe. And so every year on the anniversary of his death, Jews from all over the world come and visit his grave. So it's the most important grave located here.
Okay then. So, and is there a particular reason maybe why they chose this particular site? Does it have some sort of significance, or?
Well, it's next to the synagogue.
Okay. And where's the synagogue?
We're going to head over there now.
I see. Okay. Well, let's make a move towards the synagogue then.
All right then.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Poland Daily History. Today we are at Hotel Europejski, one of the most expensive hotels in all of Poland. The secret to keeping such a prestigious status relies on preserving history and providing luxurious accommodation. Today we will learn more about one of the most exclusive jewels of Warsaw.
Our guest today is Mr. Ksawery Wąsowski, a direct descendant of Aleksander Przeździecki, who decided to build Warsaw's first luxury hotel of international standards in 1855. After returning to Poland from the US in the early 90s, Mr. Wąsowski has been documenting the long and interesting history of Hotel Europejski.
One of the prominent figures in the family that runs this whole hotel, Severin, has his impact from the 1920s, as I believe, and I was wondering what is his background and what did he brought to the table, and how would he later on benefit the entire establishment as a whole?
Yes, Severin Czetwertyński was indeed a prominent person. He was trained as agronomist, so he had his agricultural background, was a member of many societies, as I mentioned, various political activities that he, from a very early age, he was a member of. So as a manager, he was, what you would say these days, he had his head on straight. You know, he had a certain order, he knew what needed to happen. He was trained in Bonn. He was trained in Riga as a young man. So he had his international training, and he brought a lot of that knowledge here. When he married Zofia Przeździecka in 1898 and joined the family that were the owners, and she being owner of half of the hotel, obviously that became a large component of what he was thinking about. So before 1921, when he formed the hotel company, there was obviously a lot that was thought about. One example, in 1920, when the various changes were taking place in the hotel, he was speaking to the owners of the future Ksawery Michalski bookstore. He suggested to them, look, you guys are looking for a spot. I have some empty space here, move in. That was before the hotel company was formed. So he was already active. Once the hotel company was active, and I mentioned before, he was instrumental in making sure that the produce, the wines, the gins, everything was top-notch and on a top international level. He also traveled the world, so he knew how things were. This was not someone trying to reinvent the wheel. He knew how things should run, how they should run smoothly, who to hire, top-notch people, so the people that are working actually in the hotel of the highest standard. This he wanted to pass on through his, let's say, designated heir for the hotel, Stefan Czetwertyński, to the point where he sent him off to the famous hotel school in Lausanne. Stefan was the first Polish graduate of that school before the war. So obviously the level of expertise as a future hotelier that you learn in that school, added to the experiences he had working at the Ritz in London and in Paris, was immense. And Stefan was ready to bring this to the table. Unfortunately, World War II happened. Stefan ended up as an officer of the Polish army in the Oflag for the duration of the war. And really his first active sole leading role in helping the hotel was during those 3 short years after the war, before the hotel was taken away. Even after that fact, which would have been a crushing blow to any person, his training and his dedication to that métier, this profession, was such that he wanted to pass on that knowledge. Poland was reconstructing everywhere. The hotel industry also, there was a new generation of people to be taught, and he was instrumental in doing so. He was working with the authorities in the hotel industry to write pamphlets, information booklets, to teach guidebooks for those young people. All this knowledge was passed on. Unfortunately, because of the political situation in the 50s and the fact that he was thrown in jail, put a damper on his future activities. Interesting fact, in 1962, a very well-known guidebook for the hotel industry, Hotelarz, came out, which does not have Stefan Czetwertyński's name at all. However, he was one of the largest authors of it, but his name was struck out completely.
How so?
Because he was not politically correct at the time, and he was, in fact, thrown out of the country 2 years earlier. His name was kind of shunned, put aside, left to be forgotten by the authorities here, not by the family. Obviously, he was very well known among the family. Once he left Poland, he went and worked various places. He worked into Intercontinental in Geneva for many years, where he retired. So this was an authority figure that people in the know that remembered him always looked up to him. To the point when he came back in 1978, knowing he was dying of cancer, he wanted to die in Poland, and he made some visits here, and at one point he was in a Hotel Bristol in the dining room, and waiters that worked with him previously recognized him, and they were so happy to see him, they almost had tears of joy coming. So that respect was there. Well, hopefully his knowledge was passed on to generations.
Mr. Wąsowski visited the hotel for the first time in 1987, 2 years before the fall of communism. However, at the time, he wasn't aware that Hotel Europejski had been owned by his family. The process to have it returned to their family lasted around 15 years, but ended successfully.
One of the things that I noticed about the place is indeed the family touch that you were talking to me about. It feels really personal, and I can see that the family spirit still passes on through you, I would say even. And I was wondering if you can talk a little bit about yourself and the contributions and how you came to discover this place belonging to the family and kind of made it what it is today.
I didn't make it, I just cut the bug of what it was.
Right.
It's an interesting story. I arrived in Poland for the very first time in my life in 1987. Still communist times. I was driven by a gentleman, a long trip through West and East Germany, and we arrived in Warsaw he invited me for lunch, and we parked in front of the Europejski. I had no clue what this place was. We walked in, old building, large restaurant, and he says to me in English, a Polish man, but he says in English, be careful, the waiters here are spies, and they listen to you, so be careful what you say. I thought, where did he take me? You know, this place is very strange. My first communist country, and so it made a huge impact, and it piqued my interest. I had no clue that this once belonged to the family.
Right.
I only found this out several years later, once communism ended, and my grandmother was saying, you know, we got to get this property back, amongst which she mentioned Hotel Europejski. So once I decided to follow this roots in my heart to Poland and actually move here, only then did I realize, okay, this is the building. And I remember this is the building where the spying waiters were listening to me. So there was an irony there. And over the years, when we were getting it back, there were other cousins, uncles, members of my family who dealt more with trying to get it back, aunts too. In 2005, when we finally got it back, I decided I'm quitting my profession in advertising, and I'm going to devote my time as a lover of history and of family and architecture and all these aspects. Felt like I'm in the right place in the right time. This is meant for me, and this is my role. For now, this is my function to bring this history back. It was lost, it was destroyed during the war. Orbis didn't really give much as far as information about the history, so we have to reconstitute it. So that became my mission in life, and for the past 14 years, I've been collecting now literally in the thousands of pieces of information, whether it be my own collection or in the collections of museums, archives, or libraries. So that became the spirit of what I'm trying to pass on through the album, which will be published soon, about the history of the hotel, which will be very richly illustrated, and hopefully many anecdotes that will liven the place. So when guests walk through the door, this place is alive. And they see the spirit of people that were here before, and they feel it. So that's my mission in life now.
Hotel Europejski has 150 years and counting of very interesting history. And the fact that the history is preserved and the personal touch of the place is what gave it the standard for the best hotel in Poland and has set the standard ever since. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. I'll see you next time on Poland Daily History.
Hello and welcome to Poland Daily. We're on an excursion to the city of Łódź. It's right in the center of the country. Known as the Polish Manchester, it's a city of art and industry. And that's where we are for this series of episodes. Łódź is famous for factories making all kinds of things, as we'll see. In its heyday, it supplied textiles to the whole of Europe. In post-World War II Poland, Łódź also became a factory of dreams. It was the site of the Warsaw Film School at Łódź, and it earned the city the sobriquet of Hollywood. That's right, the Hollywood of Poland. The film school produced such top talents as Roman Polanski, Andrzej Wajda, and Krzysztof Kieślowski, and many others, as we'll see. There are more superlatives in this city, about 75 miles southwest of Warsaw, the capital. Łódź boasts the largest shopping center in Poland, Manufaktura. It's made out of an old factory complex. That's the largest shopping center in Poland. It also boasts the longest pedestrian street in the country, Piotrkowska, where you will find all manner of restaurants, clubs, and just about everything else you'd expect on a pedestrian street, including a statue of Arthur Rubinstein, a famous pianist who was from Łódź. And the pièce de résistance, marrying both technology and art, is the Science and Technology Museum next to the railway station. This is a world-class museum. It looks like something that belongs in the Smithsonian Institution. It's interactive and impressive. That's Łódź, and that's where we are on Poland Daily Travel, your destination for perhaps the best travel about Poland you'll find anywhere. Poland Daily Travel. Like us on YouTube and like us on Facebook. We like you. Watch us now. Hello, I'm Will, and this is Poland Daily Travel, and this is, wait a second.
Otterstein.
Oh, Paulina, I was going to come to me.
I thought you were going to forget about me.
I was going to forget about you. How could I forget about you? Look, you're wearing your fur.
And standing next to you.
You're standing next to me. I knew you seemed familiar, and I was wondering why you were standing next to me, but it must be because you're Paula Otterstein. And let me tell you, when I think of great names, last names, I always think of Otterstein first.
Thank you, me too.
It's a beautiful name, yeah. Anyway, we're here at a place called Manufaktura, about which I know nothing. And I'm not ashamed to say that. But what do they do here?
What do you mean, shop?
Yes, oh, no wonder I know nothing. It's all about shopping. Now,
and
folks,
eating.
and eating,
and
yeah.
dining.
Oh, eating, I like eating. It would be, Americans would love
and
this
drinking.
place.
Yeah. It's
They could come here and shop till they drop, and they could just eat a lot of food and pig out, right?
And then shop
and get really
eat,
huge, and then change the sizes upwards. Go back and exchange all their clothing and get bigger sizes after they've had 5 pizzas, or whatever they serve here. But anyway, I can remain ignorant as usual because we have.
Someone coming.
We have you here, obviously, a lot smarter than I am.
Yeah.
But we
with
also have
what
do you call some, with a lot of knowledge on Łódź. What do we call someone from Łódź?
Łódźanin?
Łódźanin? What do you mean?
I hope I'm not mistaken.
Really?
Would
Not a
Łódźowiec?
Łódźowiec?
No.
Łódźowicze?
No.
I don't know what I'm saying.
Let's change the topic.
Okay. Anyway, let's change because we're going to insult somebody. I have no idea. We call it a citizen of Łódź, and we have one. With us right now, may I introduce our friend Tom. Tom, just come on in here. Here he is, folks.
Hi, nice to meet you guys.
Hey.
Where are we, Thomas?
Actually, we are in the very heart of the Promised Land. Have you heard about the nickname of Lodz called Promised Land?
I haven't, tell us.
Okay, so the city was built from the scratch in the 19th century because of the huge cotton industry. And it was called Promised Land because people from all around Polish land, which were former in the Russian Empire, were coming here to make great money. And in fact, they did really big money. So that's why it was called the Promised Land. And this factory was built on because this is a former factory, and it was built in the middle of nowhere and became one of the biggest factories in Russian Empire. So, in fact, it was the promised land for anyone who dreamed about big money. So, when you have currently American dream, here was the Polish dream. And I heard when I was coming here, I heard that you were talking how to call the citizen of Lodz. So there is one name. It comes from German, in fact, but it is like Lodzer Mensch.
Lodzer Mensch.
Lodzer
Mensch means man, or human being. Human being.
Yeah.
Is that right?
So
human being? You speak German.
Man from Lodz, but this is a particular type of man. The one who came to the promised land and make big money from nothing to billionaire.
Yeah.
So the real citizens of Lodz are Lodzer Mensch.
Lodzer Mensch. Okay.
And there is also a famous quote from the book called Promised Land, written by Polish writer Raymond.
Right? He won a Nobel. He won a Nobel Prize.
Yeah, he won a Nobel Prize, and he wrote a famous book, Promised Land. And in this book, there is a dialogue between two guys who came here with nothing, and they said, "Okay, I have nothing. I also have nothing. Great. So together, we have enough, exactly enough, to build a great factory." So here it is.
How did they get the money for the factory? This is the factory in that movie, or in that book.
Yeah, it is also in the book because it was one of the biggest factories in wood at that time. It was built by Israel Poznański.
Which the palace, we're going to go and walk by the palace later.
There is his palace, and here was his factory. Right. So he was a Jewish entrepreneur,
right,
who built the factory from the scratch.
It's incredible. How could he do that? How did he get the money to do it? I mean, you can't. Where do you get the capital to build a factory?
Yeah, we want to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually.
Don't you? You wanted to know, yeah.
Actually, they usually started with very small capital, but at that time in Russian Empire there was huge market for textiles. So even if you have a small factory, you can very easily build it to be a great factory.
Right.
Of course, using extremely cheap labor force.
Right.
So because the people from rural regions around the roads,
from the countryside,
they were around the roads. There were a lot of very poor countryside regions. So peasants were coming here and were working almost for nothing.
They work for virtually nothing just to have something to do.
Exactly.
I can see that tradition has still occurs in Poland.
Unfortunately, it has changed a lot since the collapse of communism regime.
Yeah.
But of course, at the time, at the 19th century, it was quite
just like that.
Yeah, the communism was just like that, and that's why one of the reasons why we fortunately managed to destroy it
and to change completely, change
the system.
Change things.
Yeah.
So now this is. It started as a factory of what? What were they making?
They were making textiles.
Fabric, which is famous. It's called the Polish Manchester.
Yeah, it is called Polish Manchester because of the number of factories here, but textiles factories.
Right.
Not a heavy industry, like a steel plants, but textile factories which were producing textiles for Russian market, and especially for, in fact, Russian army, which were getting bigger and bigger at that time. And also this spot is not only a factory, it is also a city inside the city, because besides these buildings, there are also another buildings where workers were living. So they were living there. There were also hospitals, kindergartens, schools. So they were actually living inside this factory complex. Everything was here.
Was existing here.
Yeah.
So it's okay. So that was what Łódź was like some time ago. This factory was once a working textile factory, started by two guys with virtually nothing, employing people who had absolutely zero. And there was a famous book, The Promised Land, also a movie by Andrzej Wajda called The Promised Land from the 70s, which was a very famous film worldwide. Hey, stay tuned, and we'll talk about what Manufaktura has become today. Stay with us. Poland Daily with
me,
Paula, with you, and with Paula and Thomas. We'll be right back. Hi, we're back. Poland Daily Travel. I'm here in the beautiful Manufaktura, which has an amazing history, as Thomas was just telling us. And we're here with Paula, of course, with me, with you, and with him. And okay, so we got a great history before about what this place was, what it was designed for, which was a factory, and quite a successful factory. It's so successful and so important that a book was written about it and later made into a famous film. What is it today? It was manufacturing, now what is it?
Actually, currently it's a huge shopping center, shopping mall.
How huge is it?
It is, I think, second biggest in the Central Europe.
Wow.
So it's really vast.
Okay.
So you can do shopping here, but also there is a hotel, beautiful one, which is in the former factory. So you have rooms with the red brick walls.
That's the Vienna Hotel, Vienna House
No,
Hotel?
it's Andels. It's Vienna Andels, yeah.
Vienna Andels.
Vienna Andels,
Okay.
yeah. There is also art museum, MS Square,
Okay.
which has great collection of modern art.
Right.
There are cafe, restaurants, clubs.
Yeah.
So you can actually, as in the history, workers were living here, working and living here.
Yeah.
Currently, you can also live here, shopping, having fun, and staying overnight, and also enjoy some art.
So it has everything to add to attract the modern enjoyer of a cosmopolitan lifestyle. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. Stay with us. Poland Daily Travel. Okay. We're going to take a further walk around and maybe go look at this beautiful palace nearby. Okay. Stay with us. Thanks to Tom and thanks to Paula.
Thanks.